After losing in the Western Conference play-in tournament and missing the playoffs, the Sacramento Kings pulled off one of the most significant offseason signings in franchise history in DeMar DeRozan. The Kings and DeRozan agreed on a 3-year, $74 million sign-in trade deal that will see Harrison Barnes sent to the San Antonio Spurs and Chris Duarte, 2 second-round picks in cash, sent to the Chicago Bulls. Having not missed more than 11 games in a season since 2012 and averaging 20 points per game in each of his last 11 seasons, the Kings add an undeniably durable and a proven offensive threat. DeRozan is one of the league's most underappreciated scorers. He famously doesn't shoot many three-pointers, but has found ways to maintain efficient and prolific scoring by drawing oodles of free throws. DeRozan does it in a unique way. 31% of his shot attempts come at least 14 feet away from the basket, the highest share of any player in the NBA. An additional 30% come from the short mid-range. At his best, DeRozan commands the floor like a ballroom dancer, flitting around the court until he spots an opening. He utilizes nearly every square foot of the court to get shots off. Opponents know he loves the turnaround jumper, but DeRozan leverages that anticipation to open up smooth pivots to the hoop for an easy lay-in. It's not all a slow dance. DeRozan knows when to pick up the tempo. He boasts arguably the most diverse bag of mid-range tricks and finishes in the game. That creativity makes DeRozan a nightmare to guard in isolation, where he averaged an excellent 1.1 points per possession. He was also in the league's top decile when shooting out of the pick and roll. Those two abilities make him one of the league's premier crunch time assassins. He finished third in the inaugural Clutch Player of the Year voting in 2022, which was won by new teammate De'Aaron Fox, and finished second last season. DeRozan is primarily a scorer first, but his playmaking has become an underappreciated part of his game. He averaged 5 assists last season against just 1.7 turnovers, boasting superb positional marks. He's not a flashy passer, but he runs a perfectly functional pick and roll and should make magic with Domantas Sabonis, a better screener and finisher than DeRozan's old dance partner, Nikola Vucevic. So there's a lot to like, but DeRozan is far from a perfect player or fit. He shot fewer than 3 triples per game last season, and he will be operating in similar parts of the court as Sabonis. Kings' offense is based on using Sabonis, who averaged the 3rd most touches in the league last season, as a high-post hub with cutters whirring around like sharpshooting dragonflies. 40% of Sacramento's shots were threes last season, 3rd most in the league. It's hard to imagine even a best-case scenario where DeRozan doesn't drag that number down. On the other end, DeRozan has been a below-average defender his entire career. He's a little too slow for quicker wings, a little too weak for bigger forwards, and spacey off the ball. Unlike most players, who have at least one position they can comfortably guard, DeRozan can't really guard anyone at an average level. He's not a travesty necessarily, but a team with many defensive weak links just got weaker. The Kings finished a better-than-expected but still mediocre in defensive rating last season. It's hard to imagine them getting out of the 20s after this move. So why bother? The sneaky secret about Sacramento is that despite their high-flying reputation, their offense did need help. After shocking the league with a record-breaking attack in 2023, Sacramento fell all the way to 14th in 2024 despite running back essentially the same squad and having healthy seasons from its 2 best players. The scoring was good, but not great with Fox and Sabonis on the floor, and it fell off a cliff when Sabonis sat. DeRozan will absolutely help when one or both rest, and he should be an asset as part of a 3-headed offensive monster. Fox significantly altered his game last season, shooting by far the most threes of his career at 37%. If Fox becomes a 32% three-point shooter again, a number he never surpassed in the 4 seasons prior to the last, this offense will gum up faster. But if he stays prolific and reasonably accurate, the team should be able to find enough shooting from its other roster spots to let DeRozan and Sabonis breathe. Which leads to one of the most fascinating lineup questions in the league. Who is the Kings' 5th starter? Right now, we know the Kings will be rolling out a Fox-Sabonis-DeRozan trio with rising 3rd-year player Keegan Murray, a promising shooter who made tremendous defensive strides last season. The pinky spot will come down to a 3-and-D guard in Kean Ellis, an offensive-minded combo guard in Malik Monk, who recently re-signed to a 4-year, $78 million deal that guarantees a prominent role, and shooting specialist Kevin Huerter. All three bring different strengths and weaknesses to the team. Ellis theoretically makes the most sense as by far the best defender of the trio, but he also is the one least likely to command defensive attention. Monk just got a big bag, but his skill set heavily overlaps with DeRozan and Fox. Huerter has excellent off-ball chemistry with Sabonis and possesses the most gravity, but he lost his shooting touch at times last season and is the weakest defender of the three. All three may get a shot as a starter as Coach Mike Brown searches for the chemistry that can take this team to a higher level. And make no mistake, Sacramento will be battling uphill. Even after this trade, the Kings are far from guaranteed a play-in spot, much less a playoff berth. While the West isn't quite as elite at the top as it has been, it's as deep as ever. The Thunder, Nuggets, Timberwolves, and Mavericks are playoff locks. The Pelicans and Warriors both made off-season moves that should improve the team, while the Grizzlies will get back Ja Morant and might have a real center again in rookie Zach Edey. The Suns, Lakers, and remade Clippers have their usual playoff expectations. The Rockets and Spurs are both young teams who will push for play-in berths. That is a lot of competition for the play-in seeds, much less the guaranteed playoff berths of the top 6. Speaking of the Spurs, we should commend them. They somehow nabbed an unprotected 2031 swap with the Kings and a useful veteran in Harrison Barnes, who has declined as a player but fits nicely next to Wemby without having to give up anything of value. Barnes at least can take and make threes, something Wemby's teammates have been unable to do. I do think the swap is overvalued, however. We have no idea what the Kings and Spurs will look like in 2031. Health, freak circumstance, general league turnover, and so much more will impact both rosters in ways impossible to foresee. It's a good bet that the Kings will be worse than the Spurs in 7 years, perhaps significantly, but it's far from a certainty. Sacramento didn't have to dip too far into their war chest of other tradable assets, either leaving them plenty of ammunition if another opportunity to improve presents itself. Some trades are made to reinvent, complete, or unburden itself. Others are made for a team to simply be more of what it already is. None of Sacramento's established weaknesses are resolved or even addressed by bringing DeRozan. The Kings may have improved their team in such a way that only keeps them treading water. But a core of Fox and Sabonis is too good for outright tanking, and the DeRozan move at least gives them a chance to make some noise without compromising too much of the future.